Good morning. Welcome back to my channel. So it's nice and early morning. I'm the first one out on the trail. It's about 7 o'clock and oh my God, the temperatures are about 0 degrees Celsius. So that's really quite mild considering what we have come through earlier in the month of February. So I'm excited to show you a different setting here. And I like the fact that when I'm first one on the trail, I have a chance to break through and see new tracks and things of that nature. So join me on my walk today. I'm using a boardwalk, and I guess this is probably a good time to mention why different places have boardwalks. It's really to help with preventing erosion or excessive erosion of the surrounding sensitive area. So the area that I'm in right now is marshland, but I'm heading more towards a bog. And a bog is a very sensitive environment because the nutrients that make up the sphagnum moss in a bog take a very, very long time to break down any nutrients that are tied up in, say, tree trunks and things of that nature. So this is a very sensitive area that the management company that looks after the waterways in this particular area of Ontario maintain the trails so that it helps to keep us on the footpath so that we don't erode the area around. So I try my best to just stay on here, especially during the growing season. There's maybe a little less erosion in the winter by stepping off the trail, but that's not what I'm inclined to do. I'm inclined to just preserve it as well as possible. So I'm looking at a game trail. Game trails are ones that are narrow enough that animals that are smaller than us can slide through pretty much undetected, or maybe where they're searching for prey. So I'm looking at some old coyote tracks that are on this. I'll show that to you. And the way that I've talked about coyote tracks in other videos that you may have seen, coyotes are animals that have a narrower chest than, say, a domestic dog. Domestic dogs have a wider chest, so their footsteps don't typically line up one after the other. Coyotes have a narrow chest so that they can follow game trails to pursue, whatever animal it is that they are attempting to find for dinner. So here's what a game trail looks like, and you can see the coyote tracks that are, basically filling in with snow. Not sure how well that shows up, but anyway, it is a narrow trail that goes off into the bush. I'm standing in front of a tree that is a rare example of a deciduous conifer. So a deciduous conifer is a coniferous tree, one that bears cones, that actually loses its needles. So we typically think of deciduous trees as the ones that have turned to beautiful colors in the fall. They lose their leaves and then they grow green ones back in place of them. Those green leaves are actually just leaves filled with chlorophyll, which allow the plant, the tree, in order to gain food or make food from the energy of the sun, uses chlorophyll in order to do so. So when we see conifer or deciduous trees in the fall, they're just losing the chlorophyll and returning to their normal color. But here is the deciduous conifer, and I'm going to ask you what you think it is. There's a whole stand of them here because those are typically found in a bog environment. So stay tuned to the end of the video. Think about it, look it up if you need to, and I'll provide you with the name of what this deciduous conifer is that lives in southern Ontario. The woodpeckers are communicating with each other. They're not always producing that drumming sound against a tree because they're pecking holes for food or because they're making a nest. It's also a way of communicating with each other. Kind of like, this is my turf, stay out. Or, hey ladies, I'm a really good drummer. Come and watch me, listen to me. So it's a way of broadcasting that they're there and that's their tree for that moment. From another video, you may recognize those to be deer tracks. Good morning. I'm walking this pathway just a little bit behind a couple of white-tailed deer. I think you might be able to see them. When deer sort of flash their white tail, so the name of the deer that we have in this vicinity is white-tailed deer, and their white tail, when they flash it in our direction, it's actually a signal to predators that they've been seen, and therefore they're ready to run whenever they need to, whenever they feel threatened enough. So that's one of the reasons that you see them flashing their tail as they're running away from us in the woods. Now, another curious thing about this time of year, which is late February, early March, is that all the deer seem to be females. Where did all the males go? The thing is, we're now looking at males and females where males have already dropped their antlers. Antlers are just a temporary thing. They're meant for show during the breeding season called the rut, which takes place roughly from September to late December, and after that time they shed them. So it's not until we start seeing them maybe May, June, where you see little buds with velvet, the skin that nourishes the antler, starting to grow again. So at this time of year, it looks like all of them are females, when in fact, they just look more similar right now. What's really exciting is I'm out here during the final week of February 2021, and I can hear robins all around me. I showed in an earlier video a flock of robins on February 11th. But it feels like spring is in the air. Yesterday, the temperature rose to +5. Today, it's expected to go to +8, and then it'll go down to the normal temperatures of around 0 degrees Celsius. But I'm going to give you a listen, because I think it's really cool. It feels like spring is in the air for us and for the animals. Hopefully those sounds carry through the microphone, but I find that hugely exciting. Spring is on its way and it's a few weeks early. Yay. So out on my walk this morning, I found something sort of interestingly out of place. It's a fish that was placed here on the trail. And so I think there's a couple of reasons why that might have happened. First of all, let me just show you the fish. Okay, a couple of ways I think that may have happened. One is, it could have been a bald eagle. This area has a plentiful supply of bald eagles, and they're fish-eating birds. So it's very possible it was flying. It had the fish already in its talons, which are the feet that it uses to catch and kill prey. And so that's something that could have fallen out of a bald eagle's talons, or there might have been some other predator. The only thing is, there are no tracks around that lead up to this fish, which is why I kind of think it must have been a bird. So I'm tempted to throw it back towards the Thames so that other animals could potentially eat it. But I think it's kind of a neat thing for other people to stumble across and try to figure out, how did it get here? So I'm going to show you the scenario again, and you'll see that there's no tracks leading from the riverbank up here, that if something like, I don't know, coyote caught it and put it here on the trail, ran away because something disturbed it. I think it was more likely a bird. Here's the scenario. I always think things like that are very interesting because it tells a bit of a tale. In the distant background, not only can you hear crows, but you can also hear the belted kingfisher. Sounds a bit more distant, so it may have flown away. It has spent the winter here, which I think for the most part is pretty unusual because it needs open water in which to fish. Fish make up a large part of its diet. So that was it, if you happen to catch it. So, belted kingfisher, another interesting winter sighting. Pretty tricky terrain. Ice cleats are a must. We'll see how I make out. You'll be the first to know if it doesn't work out. Okay, well, I just have to see if these ice cleats, I don't know. Okay. I found a way around that. Pretty tricky place to climb down. Yeah, that's the sign that something was caught last night. That blood is very bright red, so it's still fairly fresh. And then there's tracks that lead up the hill here that have blood on them, so that means something was probably dragged up the hill after it was caught. Yeah, you know that it goes on. Animals need to eat. We need to eat. And so something became a meal last night. That's what that story reveals. So the question I left you with at the beginning of today's video was, what kind of tree is a deciduous conifer that lives in bogs? And so the answer is tamarack. So we have some tamarack that is unusual in southern Ontario. It's normally found in the more boreal regions, or in, certainly in central Ontario and beyond. So I'd like to thank you for joining me on the hike today. And if you enjoyed what you had a chance to see, please give it a like. I'd really appreciate that. And if you'd like to hear more, then go ahead and subscribe. Join me next Tuesday and we'll be out on another adventure. Thanks. Bye. So yesterday I walked on this trail and found a fish. And we had a chance to kind of figure out what it is that brought that fish to end up on the trail. Well, I left it, and obviously other hikers left it. And so this is what happened to the fish since yesterday. It became a meal to something overnight, and about a third of the fish, the tail end, is what's left over. So really, in nature, nothing goes to waste. Something is inclined to be hungry, and that's on its list of things to eat. So who knows? Perhaps a coyote, because as I came along this trail this morning, again, I was following coyote tracks. So they probably figured it's a pretty lucky night, when they came across the fish. Let me see you use your binoculars.
Okay, I see a non-bird. I don't know what it is. A piece of crap on the tree. Oh, not getting anywhere with this. What is that?
We're doing a little bird watching. We're doing it from inside the truck. So this way, we'll be able to see if there's any ducks around. Kind of nice. This way we don't have to walk in the snow or the wet snow or the wet ground today. We get to do that from inside.